So, hi everyone. Before I proceed to the actual reporting of the basic facts about India, let me first actually utter the word India. Then let me guess, what have you thought of? What was the first thing you have thought of when I uttered the word India? First was the people. Probably you have imagined in your mind big people with height of like 6 foot and everything, and possessing wide eyes and brown eyes with their pointed nose and plump lips, dark skinned people with some of them, women have red dot between their eyebrows. Some of some of you probably imagined, or the first thing that came to their mind was the food, wherein the social media platform actually shared these videos about how Indian people cook. That is why the word mekos mekos became popular, because of how the Indian people use their hands, unsanitized or not, in order to whip up their cooking, whip up the ingredients for their recipes. And another one was probably because of their accent that is very popular as a prejudice and bias in terms of when we say the word Indian, because they are actually popular in YouTube's, because also of course they teach us or they tutor us on how to do things, especially connected with technology, statistics, and all of that. So let me give you just an example of how I copy the accent of the Indian people. So instead of saying t, substitute t with the letter D. For example, what did you do? I did nothing. Something like that. And actually, that is why I'm guessing what were the first things that came to your mind when I said the word India, was because it is important for us to remove these prejudices or biases or this first thing ideas when you say the word India. I know that I did not mention all of your guesses. Not all of your first thoughts when I uttered the word India, but probably I had guessed some. But before that, I just want to point out that let's remove all those prejudices and biases that are placed towards our Indian people, because they deserved more than that. So, in Hindu or Indian literature, we are going to understand the background, the historical context, the cultures and traditions of Indian people, and their literature will serve as our means in order for us to explore their behavior and psychological philosophies that affects their reputation today. So let me start with the basic facts about India. India originated from the word Indus, called Sindhu in Sanskrit. The Greeks and Iranians called it Hindos or Indos, meaning the land to the east of the river called Indus. It is officially known as the Republic of India and is known for its diverse and rich history, vibrant culture, and population. So, India originated from the word Sindhu in Sanskrit. So we all know that Sanskrit was actually one of the ancient languages that are used in India. So it is not it's not surprising to see that in the word India came from Sanskrit. So why are there mentions of Greeks and Iranians? It is because these Greeks and Iranians also once occupied the India. They also affected the language, culture, and traditions. That is why there are some parts of Indian literature that possesses Greeks and Iranians characteristics in terms of culture. Next, it is officially known as Republic of India. So, when we say Republic of India, it is still democratic in a way that they practice by people, of people, and for people policy. It is actually similar to Philippines since Philippines is also practices the republican way of governing the people. Next, India is the seventh largest country in the world by land area. The Himalayan mountains, the world's highest mountain range, rise in the north of the country, and India's terrain varies widely from the Thar Desert in the west to the jungle in the northeast. So why am I explaining the topography of the India? Because in literature, as stated or as explained by the other reporters already, we can say that the topography or the geography of a land or a country also affects the literature or the culture and tradition, because it is how the people living in that land adapts to their environment. So it would not be strange for you if in the Indian literature there will be a mention of desert, jungles, and mountains, mountain range, and the likes. Let's proceed. India has a population of over 1.3 billion people, making it the second most populous country in the world. So, in India, the many despite of it's actually not one of the despite of the many, let's just say, prejudices about prejudices about their child and everything, like they do not provide the quality education. There are some issues arising from that. They have a population of over 1.3 billion people, and then the country has 29 states and 7 union territories. The official languages are Hindi and English, with 21 other recognized languages. So in India, there are probably one of the countries wherein their official languages involves English. It is not foreign. It is not foreign, but considered as a second language to them. So there are 21 other recognized languages. And why do you think that languages uh, were also mentioned? Because of course literature includes languages. That is why literature is able to communicate or expresses behaviors, historical context, and everything because of the languages the land possessed. And it would be important in order for us to understand why do these people have the accent that I have just given you an example a while ago, for example, and how do they use the language in terms of expressing their literature in not just in Hindi or in English language, but also with other dialects. Next, India is a very spiritual country with no official religion. That is one of the most controversial, not to say issues, but actually one of the controversial concerns in this country, because of their religions um, that do not typically equate or is actually equal to one another, because of the beliefs that they possessed of that they possess, the strong beliefs that they possessed, which sometimes hinders them from understanding Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, and Buddhism from one another. But according to researches, the dominated This India is mostly dominated by the Islam and Sikhism. There are other religions, of course, but most of the people practice the religion of Islam and Sikhism. That is why there is no official religion, because they will practice many religions that you cannot just possibly state one official religion, because that would not actually represent all the people because of the differences in beliefs and traditions connected to their religion. Next is the caste system. A social hierarchy based on birth still exists in India today. Many of the movies actually in India portray how there are still many issues concerning not just about women, but also riches and power and many issues and concerns like that. One example of an issue wherein I can still see or observe in the Indian practice is on how they still have arranged marriages for women, and they still possess this idea wherein women are just supposed to be inside the houses serving the husband and just simple housewife, and as usual the men will go out and provide for the family. The women are often characterized as passive and submissive, while the men are characterized as dominant. In the case of the caste system, it is a social hierarchy. So when we say social hierarchy, it does not also involves men or women. It also involves the elders, something like that, wherein there are some discriminations that occur because of how you possess money or power, and it is still strongly practiced in India. But of course, in reality, it is not just practiced in India but all over the world. Next, India is a federal republic with a parliamentary system of government. So when we say federal republic, it is not simply about the democracy or like of people by people and anything. It is actually more on a decentralized form of government, unlike Philippines, wherein we are centralized on the Manila. It is when we say centralized, it is a main point of our government and it is the main source. More like it will be the main target or the source of everything in Philippines. And when we say in India, Federal Republic, it is more decentralized because the people or the local government units in their areas have the responsibility and have the authority to address their own problems without consulting the higher without consulting the presidents or like more like the senators in the on the higher grounds, because they can already actually solve the issues on their own. That is the main idea of federal republic. And when we say parliamentary system of government, what really actually differentiates parliamentary system from the others is that it has only prime minister, and it helps it he or she acts as a president. But since it is more of a federal republic, of course the power also is the power of the prime minister is equal to the president, and it still works according to democracy, which wherein authority the main authority or the power comes from the people. Next, India's economy is one of the fastest growing in the world. The country is a major global IT industry player known for its outsourcing services. So let us remove the prejudice that India is a poor country. Actually, it is not. So when we say India's economy, it starts from the information technology, because as you can see, many companies abroad are dominated by Indian geniuses because most of them are actually good or are best, are working at best when it comes to information technology. And that's where their strengths lie at. So it is a major global IT industry player known for its outsourcing services. You're not very familiar with the outsourcing services, but when I say it using the BPO term or the call center, you're probably gonna know that yes, that is how most of their business works in India. But I'm not saying that all of them, but most of them. Because they specialize in information technology, not just about in BPO or business program outserving services and the likes, but still because of their skills in IT or information technology, the economy of India was able to grow with the other first world countries, unlike us that we're still considered as a third world country. So what is the connection of the economy and the government of the India to their literature? So we do know that literature encompasses many topics. So the literature can also affect the republic the form of government because it will reflect on how the people that wrote those literatures were living in that moment and how their context of that time affected how they view the world in their own terms. And one of the factors that affects the perspective of people is the form of government. Of course, if it is dictatorship and they were considered as oppressed, the literature will reflect rebellion and oppression. And in the terms of economy, if it is poor, it will reflect on the literature using symbolic terms, allegory, and the likes. And their economy, since it is one of the fastest growing in the world, it will also reflect in the literature and will be used as a way to express on how India is actually improving, not just within their culture, not just because of their cultures and traditions, but also because of their money matters or economy. Next, Aryan people arrived in India around 1500 BC and introduced the Vedic scriptures, which form the basis of Hinduism. I have not mentioned Hinduism as one of the major, as one, I mean, sorry, as one of the uh, religions a while ago because let us be honest that Hinduism, aside from Islam, is highly practiced also in India, wherein there are more than one gods and goddesses in their in that religion. Like for example, Mahabharata. That is all I can recall. Okay, next, the Vedas are a large body of religious texts originating in ancient India. Composed in Vedic Sanskrit, the texts constitute the oldest layer of Sanskrit literature and the oldest scriptures of Hinduism. So, when you see an Indian literature talking about the Vedic scriptures, that is of course the basis of Hinduism, it would not be as shocking as it is because Vedas are actually one of the oldest literature you can find in India, one of the one of the oldest basis of how the philosophy or how the psychological behavior of the people from the ancient India was affected, or how they move, or how they perceive things. Because as stated here in the basic facts about India, Aryan people arrived with these Vedic scriptures, providing them teachings. That is where we will connect the Indian people and their literature in knowing more about India. Next, India gained independence from British rule in 1947 after a long struggle led by Mahatma Gandhi. So, like other countries, India also were also conquered by many countries. One of them was Britain, but one of the noted the one probably of the noted countries that conquered them was Britain, because of how famous the people of how famous, not the people, sorry, but how famous the events were that actually led them to freedom, that actually led India to gain their independence from the rule, or from the conquerors, or more like the it's not the right term for conquerors, but rather mm, mananakop. Mahatma Gandhi was an Indian lawyer, politician, social activist, and writer who became the leader of the Indian independence movement against British rule. As such, he came to be considered the father of his country. Gandhi is internationally esteemed for his doctrine of non-violent protest to achieve political and social progress. As you can see from the Vedic scriptures, we proceeded to Mahatma Gandhi because it is one of the most important highlights of Indian literature, was because of how also Mahatma Gandhi affected the literature of their time because of the oppression and then independence they have gained from the British rule. And it would not be so shocking if you can see many of the Indian literature among times of 1947 having the themes independence and oppression because of Mahatma Gandhi's long struggle. Mahatma Gandhi and the Indian people long struggle with British rule, sorry. And he is highlighted here because he also contributed to the literature of the India. And not just about, because of course literature isn't just about the culture and tradition, but also of the significant human experiences that the India faced or encountered as they made their way to the present time. Now let's talk about the India is the home to the Taj Mahal, one of the seven wonders of the world. The Golden Temple in Amritsar, India provides free vegetarian meals to over 100,000 people. Yoga originated in India and has existed for over 5,000 years. 74% of women in India prefer arranged marriage. So, now why do you think why do you think I have mentioned these facts in connection to literature? Let me explain. It is actually one of the manifestations of the literature. Yes, these are actually the manifestations of the literature, wherein we can say that the literature was a conceptual knowledge or conceptual idea, but then Taj Mahal, the Golden Temple, were the actual representations of the literature, wherein they applied the conceptual idea uh, embedded in the literature, and then the Taj Mahal was the the Taj Mahal and the Golden Temple was the product of that literature. And the Golden Temple in Amritsar, India provides free vegetarian meals over 1,000 people. 100,000 people daily. That is where one of the scriptures wherein the practice of Hinduism, the religions and the traditions or beliefs in the scriptures, which we consider as literature, this is the product of it. This is a product of the literature wherein they put the conceptual knowledge embedded within the literature, which became a practice. And yoga originated in India and has existed for over 5,000 years. 74% of women in India prefer arranged marriage. So, as we can see, as we can see in these basic facts about India, and as I have stated in the last slides, that there are still practices in the Indian culture or tradition that is not agreeable with the other countries if we're going to talk about it. But here in India, of course, that is how they grew it. That is how they were raised. So it should not become a shock when most of the women, or 70%, 74% of the women prefer arranged marriage, because that is how they were raised by their fathers, or how they were raised by their parents in terms of social caste system. Next, Mahabharata and Ramayana. So now I'm going to give a little bit of I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction to the Indian literature, because these are the most famous literatures in India, and it is actually studied in grade 10 or in senior high schools, having having literary criticisms by most of the junior high school students in order to understand the main concept of the Indian literature. The epic narrates the life of Rama, prince of Ayodhya in the kingdom of Kosala. The epic follows his 14-year exile to the forest, urged by his father King Dashaharata. Okay, and the Mahabharata is one of the two major Smriti texts and Sanskrit epics of an ancient India revered in Hinduism, the other being the Ramayana. It narrates the events and aftermath of the Kurukshetra War, a war of succession between two groups of princely cousins and Kauravas and Pandavas. I will not actually much delve deeper into this literature because my other group mates will discuss this, but I will just at least give you the gist of it and how it is connected to the Indian literature, because as you can see, it involves the goddesses gods and goddesses in Hinduism, where most of the people practice. So the themes around it, or the lessons surrounding it, is affected by the Vedic scriptures and other religious scriptures and other literature that affects on how they will express their living state at that time. Next, chess originated from the Gupta Empire of India. As early as 200 BC, India already possessed a considerable body of literature written in several Indian tongues. Indian culture has interesting and distinctive qualities. Indian literature, already fully developed over 3,000 years ago, is rich in spiritual and imaginative values. So, first, chess, we already know about that. And then, as early as 300 BC, so we cannot say that India just recently possessed culture and traditions, because, as stated here, as early as 300 BC, they have already, of course, developed their own culture and traditions that have just evolved, changed, and modified over time in order to suit the people's needs of their time, of course. And then Indian culture has interesting and distinctive qualities. Indian literature, already fully developed over 3,000 years ago, is rich in spiritual and imaginative values. That is to say that it is that the literature of the Indian literature is confined to spiritual imaginative values, but of course it explores other themes that does not point out these two, but also of course other like love, romance, jealousy, war, and things like that. But let's just see that we can see that most of the Indian literature actually is rich in spiritual and imaginative values, going beyond the status quo, explaining how and why things happened, especially in terms of war and how the nature came to life and how things were created. Next, Sanskrit is India's ancestral language, which means cultivated or perfected. The earliest known literature of India is a collection of traditions handed down by word of mouth. Similar to others, of course, their literature was handed before by oral literature. I thro- as no wrong grammar. Handed by handed to orally, and of course became oral literature. So the literature first was oral literature. And it is not immediately as a written literature, but it also became first as oral literature through Sanskrit, the ancestral language of India. India was a center of an ancient civilization which spread east and south and influenced the language and culture of many countries in both Europe and Asia. And that is where my report ends. So, this basic facts about India introduces you on how you will see India, not just about your prejudices that you see in the social media platforms, but introduces you to the fact that there are that there are world, there is a more beautiful world behind your prejudices and biases that hinders you from understanding and seeing that other world that India tried or India tries for you to see. And that is all, and I hope that by learning these basic facts about India, you will learn to see or you will learn to perceive the literature of India as a thing that moves your heart closer to the Indian people and understand how their behavior affects their daily living. Thank you.